I'm very pleased to introduce to you our guest speaker, Mr. Seng Yao Lao, who is a Senior Executive Vice President at Tencent.
This is very scary because if my high school teacher in statistics were to know that I'm here standing to talk to you about statistics, she'll probably flip. Now, it's such a great honor for my team and myself to be here today at the IMF and to be given that opportunity to address you on the topic regarding digital economy in China. Let me begin by saying that judging from the distinguished profiles of the speakers that we have seen this morning, our presence here is actually rather unorthodox, wouldn't you think? Because if you were to look at this, I mean, this is a heavy, super heavy weight global economics and statisticians, I can't even pronounce it correctly, forum. And honestly, what do we know about statistics and what honestly do we know about economies to be given such an honor to address such a distinguished forum of ladies and gentlemen. Then my colleagues were trying to make me feel more easy by saying that, you know what, I think that's the reason why they put us after lunch. Because right after lunch, we could then talk about something lightweight for consumption, digital or not. Well, anyway, I promise you that that's all that I have in terms of jokes for this session. Because when people talk about China, basically is not something that's to be taken lightly. Now, I'd like to begin by saying that China's contribution towards the entire global economy has grown more than 5 times over the past 2 decades. And you are all economics by profession, and it then means that I don't really have to go right into the details. However, I do want to actually put forward an idea for your kind consideration that this stunning growth has to do with the remarkable and historic digital transformation that modern China has achieved over the past 2 decades. And I'm eager to share with you on how that various layers of economic value system were transformed virtually, literally overnight between the interplays of the invisible hands of the government, obviously with the visible hands of the marketplaces. Sometimes you don't know which is which. The government is visible or the marketplaces is invisible. Now, I think more importantly, my team and I, we are here to actually try to learn something from you on how digitalizations of a nation's economy could actually have an impact on the future role of GDP. From what we have learned from this morning, obviously there's a lot of discussions about whether such concept should continue. I think it would be serving as a leading economic indicator, and potentially it might be a chance that this concept could be migrating into some other possibilities as well. And we are privileged certainly to be part of this distinguished forum trying to explore towards a more intellectual foundation going forward. Now, China today, to many people, indeed, is actually the best-in-class case study on how digitalization has made a positive impact on almost all social economic layers within the society. And in fact, some of our friends that works as a professors and all that have actually said that this is actually a dream outcome for many economic policy makers. You can see from this chart that China now is a global leader in e-commerce and digital payments, and also in fact home to some of the largest so-called unicorns that was actually homegrown or homebred from China. Granted, some critics have actually voiced concerns that having achieved such a high growth, numbers alone might not be adequate for China to continuously to sustain that sort of a further digital transformation. Well, numbers certainly does actually speaks the results, as the portions of the GDP contribution flowing from the digital portion is now 30.3%. And that seems to be the highest growth rate in the world. Now, I know that you are statisticians. I know that when we talk about numbers, you get very excited. Like what we have learned from our previous speaker this morning, the best way to spend our time this afternoon might be actually for us to focus on discussion on getting the conceptual issues right for the time being. Now, with regards back to the digital economy in China, we believe that the true values of digital economy lies in the potential and inherent socio-economic impact that it would bring upon the human race as a whole. And more importantly, this actually underscores the fact that the world that we're living in today is facing the dawning age of a new digital renaissance as a new digital civilization is about to begin. It also means that there are so many other aspects of digital transformation that have yet to be studied and fully understood, and of that social economy. And in fact, some of us this morning will say that the conversation has actually just begun. Now, before I move on to the meat of the story, perhaps let's quickly do a quick update about how definitions of digital economy is being understood way back in China. Now, one of the most credible acknowledgements of that definition in China was actually found during the G20 summit in Hangzhou last year. As a very, very simplistic glance, you can see that modern information network has become an important space for economic activities, and information and communication technology has become a vital driver to optimize economic structures and both in terms of economic growth as well. Now, that's probably is the most remarkable features of China's digital economy. When we look at the digital components of the GDP, it's actually being divided further into two very distinct but interrelated components. The very first is the so-called information and communication technology ICT portion. And obviously the second one is this what we call the newly created integrated components. Now, the ICT portion refers to the tech sectors, including information technology, telecommunications, and the internet sector, whereas the integrated component refers to other industry. What is amazing is that more than 76% of the total digital economy today has been contributed by the integrated portion of the society. And what does this tell us? Just our founder, Mr. Pony Ma, has said before that no pure internet enterprises will exist in the future society, and all traditional industries and enterprises will have the genetic codes of the internet. And in fact, the border between digital economy and the real economy will eventually vanish at last. And this means in China, the concepts of digital economy is just a transition in nature, and eventually we believe that digital economy will just become simply the economy. Perhaps the next question that we ought to be engaging ourselves with would be, how did a GDP size of 11 trillion in size actually manage to transform so rapidly within the space of the last 2 decades? In our opinion, this is simply an amazing story about how a nation's resolve and ability to digitalize economic activities across major industry sectors throughout the entire society. Now, in order for this to take place, two very fundamental things ought to be in place. The very first being a digital infrastructure, and secondly, a very massive user adoption rate. And these two ingredients respectively actually made up, so happen, the demand and the supply sides of the equation. And by fortune and design, our company, many other companies in China for that matter, Tencent, Alibaba, Baidu, JD.com, TT, and etc., we happen to be around and were involved in both sides of that equation. Now, if we were to analyze from the supply sides of the economy, the government, along with all the business leaders, sectors, is actually building an increasingly sophisticated digital infrastructure in China. The Chinese government in China is not just a policy maker, but also an investor, a heavy investor, innovator, and a consumer themselves in that effort to promote the process, the so-called adoption rates of digitalizations. Now, it has actually advanced a number of policies and programs designed to strengthen the entire infrastructures of digital economy and making it the most powerful engine, catalyst for economic growth over the years. And in fact, the most significant of all was the concept to be known as Internet Plus, unveiled back in the year 2015, and that followed up with a detailed action plans and a series of policies around the entire country. And we believe this is where the tipping points of various social economic impact began. And I wish we probably have more time later on. I'm going to come back again during tomorrow for the ending session, and we can talk more about this. Well, at the same time, the rapid emergence and the growth of the entire Chinese tech sector, the tech companies are actually making China a pretty interesting ecosystem, if you like. So internet companies with global reach are creating a multifaceted and multi-industry digital ecosystem. And these are some of the names that I've actually mentioned. And in fact, you realize that most of the names here are beginning to appear in the so-called rankings of global brands, if you like. Back to Tencent, our corporate strategies of connecting everything and empowering everyone has been a great source of enrichment to the digital economy as we unleash the hidden powers of social connectivity. And our social network platform today now is actually the largest in China, along with our pioneering entertainment platform, cloud computing, and mobile payment platform that is taking a larger share in market as well. And we are building a smart connecting ecosystem that anchors a multiple smart city lifestyles, if you like. So when a digital infrastructure is in place, the result is the unleash of multiple pent-up demands. Yesterday, we were speaking to the deputy managing directors of IMF. So we were trying to figure out whether such demand was new, whether it's from 0 to 1 and 1 to n. I guess such questions will remain to be deliberated in this conference for these 2 days. One should never neglect the fact that China today has become the world's largest mobile market. We have more than 50% of the Chinese population are actually utilizing mobile access. And that's a very powerful infrastructure that we have built over the years. Now, the huge network effect underlying user demand in this marketplace has led to a new types of varieties of innovations, thereby pushing China's transformation from a trend follower into a global trendsetter, and some of the things that we have seen over the years. Today, China has a world-class digital investment and startup ecosystem, especially in key technologies areas such as bike sharing, cashless lifestyles, fintech, drone, just to name a few. And these are just the beginning. For this part of the sharing sessions, I think the point that we're trying to make is that it's clear that drivers from both sides of the economy have actually worked together to build a remarkable digitally imprint economy, to build this so-called uniquely Chinese characteristics playground, if you like. There's a song that in America that we used to sing, we built these cities with rock and rolls, right? I think we can all relate to that. We are not that distant in terms of our age group. But in China, the guys there, they don't sing that way. They say, we built these cities with 1 and zeros. Let's see a video.
Give me that swing, 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 give me that swing. My heart is giving you love. Try not to need it so much. You were the one right from the start. Your eyes were saying the same.
One and zeros, indeed, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we analyze the various drivers and the tipping points of that mega trends that is actually taking place in China today, it is amazingly similar to what we have learned from these notions of the fourth industrial revolution. Now, however, it's crucial to note that the real values of digital economy, in fact, and this is important, lies not in finding the new measurements of this economic model, but actually more importantly, appreciating the potentials that are hidden from socio-economic perspective. If there was one key words that I wish you take away, the reason that deserve us flying thousands of miles away is actually this. It's not just about measurement, but the socio-economic impact that could have actually done within the society. Now, the way we look at it, this is not just another industrial revolution, but rather a potential upgrade to another level types of civilization. It is not the logical, it is the logical next iterations of a previous combinations of the civilization that we have seen, whether it was the stone stool civilization, the agricultural civilization, or the industrial civilization. The stage is now, and in fact the time is right. That's what we are witnessing in China today. The time is right for the advent of a new enlightenment to be driven by digitalization and combined by intellectualization. That digital civilization is indeed a new chapter in a global development. If industrial civilization realizes mass production, the digital civilization will unleash personalized individual potential beyond just the concepts of productivity. Industrial civilization strives for higher speed for growth, while digital civilization advocates more balanced and high quality development. Industrial civilization is the miracles of human conquering, knowing the world, and digital civilization has opened a new chapter in which mankind and nature, and better still, artificial intelligence could all form together in what we call a community of a common destiny. So let's get back to the themes of this forum. How do we then measure this thing called digital economy? Allow me to share some of our point of views on how GDP fits into that bigger pictures of digital civilization. And do bear in mind that we are no economists and statisticians, but we do speak from a point of view of technology evangelists or passionate about technology. The very first point that perhaps we would like you to consider would be this. The eras of digital civilization would only magnify further the consequences of GDP paradox. And here I like to quote one of your colleagues, Dr. Lorenzo Firamonte, a renowned economist from South Africa. And I quote, "GDP is a powerful institution that shapes the way in which society sees value while molding the expectations and behaviors of politicians, business leaders, and people at large. The flaws of these numbers have been discussed at length since its invention, and yet the power remains unchallenged." End of quote. I think the paradox of GDP has been around for perhaps a little bit way too long, and through the histories of social science, there's not a single social paradox that appears to be so big as a subject to GDP. Now, as we enter into this, what we call digital civilization, with the availabilities of abundance of big data, cloud computing, not to mention the potentials of artificial intelligence and what we have learned this morning about blockchain, think about how this entire digitalization will then magnify the consequences of a GDP paradox that we have created for ourselves. All of us here present today in this room, we have a decision to make and the ability to alter, at least alter that destiny that has been around for that far too long. Secondly, GDP should not be just a benchmark of the past, but it has to be a compass into the future. GDP has acted as an economic lighthouse for industrial civilization since the last century, back in the 1930s. But as it enters the eras of digital civilization, all challenges begin to surface. The growth drivers for economic development are going through profound changes in the transformation from industry to digital intelligence. We certainly need a compass that can reflect the contributions from that new industry, the creations of new economic forms, and the energies of new models of production to further encourage and boost creativity from human race. And finally, GDP is not just a single index of growth, but it has to be an integration of hope. The digital civilization is a new step forward towards self-actualizations for the human being. The visions of a higher order of development based on celebrations of innovation, respect for environmentally friendly initiatives, and an open-mindedness mindset for greater good that brings with it a sense of well-being for all is gaining and increasing public support. Me know economy, me know nothing about this well-being, GDPs and all that. You guys figure it out. But I think the world that we're living in today, numbers is just not about growth. Now that's exactly the directions that, in fact, back in China, the government was actually trying to follow, even way back in the year 2013. In 2013, the government was already emphasizing that China should not be looking forward in choosing our heroes based on just economic performance. Improvements in daily lives, social progresses, environmental protections, and other indicators are all that had to be taken into account. Have we done the best we could? Probably not. But are we not losing the focus? Yes, I think we are just journeying on to look at beyond just growth from economy. The achievement of a more comprehensive, higher quality, and sustainable development has been a shared goal of people around the world within the international community. Now, the popularizations of big data, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and especially blockchain has provided us with the possibility to construct a multi-dimensional data information cluster, and the future guiding principle for such so-called innovations might even be a real-time data provided by machine intelligence. So if I may conclude, improving the well-being of people has been the original intention and the single ultimate purpose of the human economic activities. However, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be from the growth of statistics, and it certainly doesn't have to be the success of a very elite minority or from any short-term focused development. It has to flow from a daily focus on daily well-being, benefits that touches us all, the greater good and the vision for long-term prosperity. As we are not far from the White House, if I may, allow me to use a quote from Abraham Lincoln in a bit of a non-traditional way. We should build a GDP measurement that is by the people, of the people, and for the people. Well, this aspiration is actually in line with the spirits of the Chinese government when we have this thing we call 为人民福, 为人民谋幸福, literally means for the prosperity of the people. Let me share with you with a real case study that we have done on how the power of digital innovation, digital economy has helped transform and raise the standard of living and even hope in a village that is actually thousands of miles away from any city in China.
Tongguan is unenlightened and poor. Due to the impact of China's market economy, the younger generation has to migrate to urban areas to earn a living. The dramatic changes in family structure come in the way of local economic development, not to mention inefficient communication, lack of information, cultural loss, and the deepening of the digital divide.
我有生打工，会俺们都来，帮家人当人，我该我帮你家生活，我该香港。
咱们村呢，大概2000人这样吧。开会呀，那大喇叭喊，还有挨家挨户上门去喊，走亲访友的、上山劳动的都喊不到的，远了。
种茶呢，当然辛苦嘛。如果遇到茶叶的淡季的话，我们的茶叶就只能放在冷库里面，或者就是低价出售嘛。 卖不出去就白干嘛。
我们侗族的语言是不能用文字表达的。我和我老公谈恋爱的时候就是以歌传的情，唱的什么歌那就不能告诉你啦。现在的年轻人嘛，不用唱歌谈恋爱了。
On November 12th, 2014, Tencent Charity Foundation landed its We Country program in Tongguan, connecting the remote village with the internet. Nearly 100 villagers receive smartphones for free, signaling the era of rural internet all set to take off here. The elderly people and children left behind can communicate with their loved ones in a real-time manner.
俺来通知叶门仑大门馆后博物馆开山，后博物馆开山。
Village dynamics can be disseminated in a much more extensive and efficient way. Agro-products are exposed to a much broader market. The endangered Kegal louse also finds its way of inheritance. Teaching how to fish is any day better than simply giving away fish. Bridging the digital gap between urban and rural areas, Tencent's We Country program builds a new way of charity based on internet thinking. The positive import of the internet culture expedites the export of the nation's value effectively, revitalizing the economy of the old village and assuring the inheritance and continuation of its historical civilization from generation to generation. Tongguan, one of the millions of villages in China, is being changed gradually for the better thanks to the internet. But this is just the beginning, a first spark of the great many changes to come.
Well, as you can see, digitalization as one of the latest global phenomena has actually passed through a tipping point as a new infrastructure, new digital infrastructure that in a way connects the world, and this itself actually has created a tectonic shift in the way that we live, in the way that we communicate with one another, the way we trade, and ultimately even the way we define ourselves or we choose to exist ourselves. That was what we have done for the past 2-3 years. But 10 days ago, back in the city of Beijing, scientists and technology innovators from around the world, they gathered in this program, what we call the Tencent-initiated symposium. We call it the We Summit. They discussed for one full day, only one topic, the future of humanity. And this year, we were privileged enough to have Professor Stephen Hopkins to be with us. And he said, travel to outer space if the human race is to continue for another 1,000,000 years. We will have to boldly go where no one has gone before. Yes, indeed, we have to boldly go. Let us boldly move forward in our full consciousness to find a new compass pointing us to the eras of digital civilization. For the world that we're living in today doesn't really belong to us. We are simply the caretakers of the next generations. With that, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lau, for this very thoughtful, inspiring, and also